There are days, quiet ones, lost in between calendars, when the heart feels strangely hollow, when even the birds seem to chirp with hesitation, and the coffee cools a bit too fast. It was on one such day, brittle and overcast, that I first met Bella, or at least the shadow of her. A photo in a forwarded email, captioned simply, "Yes, she really is a therapy pig." There she was, floppy ears askew, pink snout pressed against a van window, just watching the world flutter past like a curious grandmother peering over the top of her bifocals. Children outside the park, moments from their scraped-knee childhoods, paused mid-run to point at her. An elderly man tipped his cap as if greeting an old friend, and Bella. She just snorted softly, unimpressed, as if she'd seen it all before. At first I laughed. Honestly, I did. A pig for therapy. The mind conjures images of service dogs with sleek vests, cats grudgingly enduring affection, even the occasional rabbit in a school counselor's office. But a pig, and yet, nestled behind that snout and the softest graping coat I've seen outside a storybook, there sat something different, unexpected gravity. Bella didn't just visit places. She arrived as though she knew she was being summoned, where others felt tentative. This pig stepped boldly onto tiles and into hearts. They say pigs are cleaner than dogs, and after watching Bella deftly avoid every muddy puddle in the vet clinic parking lot, I believe it. Her hooves made no noise. On linoleum, her tail curled with old soul calm, and when she finally ambled up to sit beside a shaking boy in the children's ward, resting her head against his leg with a sigh, something fragile gave way. The boy smiled. Asterisk, this story isn't about oddities or novelties. It isn't about barnyard humor or unusual pets. It's about the unexpected shape of hope. This is the story of Bella, the therapy pig with a heart too large for her small frame, hooves lighter than most intentions, and the uncanny ability to find loneliness and curl up beside it with a patient oink. It is a story stitched together with small moments and soft silences, where comfort trotted in on cloven feet and asked for nothing in return. Love, as it turns out, does not always wear what you expect. Sometimes it waddles into your life wearing little blue booties and a pink ribbon, and it stays, quietly remaking the spaces it fills. Before she was Bella, the therapy pig, she was just Bella, soft-bellied, lopsided, curious. But she was also someone's answer, though no one quite knew to whose question, not yet, and maybe. That's where Laura Jensen fits in. Laura's hands always trembled, no gently, like leaves deciding whether or not to fall. She used to say it was age, or caffeine, or the wear of time, but there was something deeper, older than years. Retired now from an unforgiving stretch spent as a pediatric emergency nurse, Laura had weathered storms made of other people's traumas. Late nights filled with alarms and too many tiny bodies not breathing right. She'd seen more than she could file into words, and some of it had followed her home. Nesting in corners where light didn't reach, she did not set out to find anything. That day, least of all a pig, Laura didn't believe in signs. But that day, she was driving past the Crestview Care Farmer, modest patch of Oregon land, bordered by white fences and lavender, and she felt the impulse, brief and unwelcome, maybe, just pull over, stretch the legs, pretend the world was gentler for a few minutes. There was an event going on, something for seniors. Laughter, all of it, genuine, rose from the grounds, like something childhood had left behind for reuse. Dozens of animals mingled, a goat stubbornly refusing to eat anything healthy, a miniature horse so dainty it looked imaginary, and in a fenced area set aside near a circle of straw balsa, scattering of piglets, mostly sleeping, except for one Bella. She was small for her kind. A Juliana, someone explained. Easier to handle, smart, social if raised well, not as squealy as people think. Bella, however, was uninterested in context. She saw Laura's arms folded, wearing the posture of a woman who did not want to smile, and she made a slow, deliberate beeline toward her, approaching with the clunky elegance of someone still learning how to be a body. Then she stopped, tilted her head, and made a noise, not a grunt, not quite, not yet, an oink. Just a soft acknowledgement. Hello. Laura sat, somewhat despite herself, on the nearest bench, and Bella climbed it gracefully, certainly not with permission, into her lap. The piglet's skin was warm and oddly soothing. She settled her snout against Laura's chest, sighed, and blinked up with the patience of someone willing to wait until you let go. And Laura, she whispered something she didn't remember afterward, something like, "What are you doing?" Or maybe just, "Oh." Bella stayed with her for 42 minutes. Nobody else got that kind of attention. The volunteers buzzed nearby, amused. Someone brought over a treat, offered it. Bella ignored it. Later, when she finally climbed down, her absence left a shape behind on Laura's thighs and soul. The adoption wasn't impulsive. Not exactly. It came with considerations. Dietary needs, zoning rules, how neighbors might react to the unexpected sound of pig snores echoing through a split-level duplex. But when the woman at the farm told her Bella had been rejected by her mother, literally nudged away in those first critical days after farrowing, Laura shut the discussion down. "I know what it is," she said softly, "to not feel wanted by the one who should want you the most." She didn't say more. Bella, nosing at her shoe, didn't need more. They signed the papers that day. Neighbor stares be damned. That first night, the house felt different. Calmer, maybe, or reverent. Like something waiting in the silence. Bella explored cautiously, then made one choice that would repeat daily for years to come. She climbed onto the couch, turned once, twice, and collapsed against Laura's side. Her tiny snout exhaled in rhythm with the news playing low on TV. Laura looked down, curious, guarded. "You really picked me, huh?" Bella yawned in slow motion. One could almost call it smirking. Sometimes people say you rescue an animal. Sometimes they say it the other way around. But sometimes, like this time, it's mutual, like two weary breaths, finding each other in the middle of a too long night. And sometimes love ... just oinks. Bella came into the world on a damp April morning, beneath a sky that couldn't decide between rain and sunrise. The farm was quiet except for the low grunts of a sow giving birth in a straw-strewn barn that smelled of cedar and old hay. Bella was the last born, the smallest, a scrap of pale skin and twitching ears, nudged half-heartedly by a mother already overwhelmed by the others. She couldn't find a teat fast enough. One of her brothers, keener and bulkier, shoved her aside. Another climbed right over her. Within a few minutes, Bella had flopped sideways into a puddle of milked straw and curled up, half cold and gently shivering, as if apologizing for being late. It was Samtha, teenager volunteering for extra credit, who noticed her. He'd been skeptical about farm work, more interested in gaming computers than goats. But he showed up anyway, earbuds dangling, sleeves rolled, determined not to fail. "Babe, we've got a leftover," he called out to the farmer's wife. "She's the runt," the woman said, glancing over. "Mum's probably rejected her. It happens sometimes." Sam looked down at the trembling piglet and frowned. There was too much silence in her, not even a proper squeal of protest. Just open eyes and a heaving side. Unprompted, he picked her up, wrapped her in his hoodie, and whispered something small and uncertain, something that might have been, "Hang in there, okay?" Sam tended to her as best a 17-year-old could. He named her Bella because she was ugly and pretty at the same time, which made him laugh. He bottle-fed her every 2 hours with goat milk from the pantry's back shelf. He cut a cardboard shoebox to create a kind of nest, lined it with fleece, and played YouTube lullabies late into the night. For reasons unknown, Bella showed an unusual fondness for humming. Whenever Sam hummed a tune off-key, uncertain she'd curled tighter, eyelids fluttering like she knew the tune by heart. By the end of the second week, she could recognize his voice. By the end of the third, she followed him more, like stumbled after, actually across the floor of the Barnes office, snuffling behind his sneakers like a living punctuation mark. Sam wasn't supposed to come on weekends, but he did. He wasn't supposed to name the livestock, but he did. When he left in the afternoons to go home, Bella would plant her back hooves and squeal just loud enough to make a point and soft enough to avoid real scolding. She wasn't demanding so much as consistent. Eventually, they let him bring her home over weekends. And so she spent Saturday nights lying on the couch in a too-short onesie, pressing her body heat into Sam's side while he played video games and pretended she wasn't watching him fail level 3 again when the Crestview Care Farm partnered with a local senior rehab center for a day of comfort, inviting their residents to pet the animals and maybe remember lives bigger than hospital rooms. Bella was 7 weeks old. She wore a tiny cotton vest stitched from an old dish towel and had just learned how to climb stairs without squealing halfway through. Laura didn't plan to go that day. Her therapist, Emily, someone young, perky, with no business knowing about trauma, had nudged her toward it for weeks. "You used to love animals," she said. "I loved silence more," Laura responded, but it was sunny by 9 a.m., uncommon in early May. The lavender near the fence line was in bloom, and something unnamed moved her to drive. She parked in the gravel lot and stayed in the car for nearly 10 minutes, watching others make their way toward the gates. Old women in floppy hats, pushing walkers. One man with a stooped back and a harmonica. He never played. She sighed, flipped down her visor, noticed the deepening lines around her eyes, and then stepped out. Someone handed her a wristband. Someone else offered lemonade. "You're not required to enjoy it," said a volunteer gently. Spotting her hesitation, she appreciated the honesty. Her lips lifted a micro-inch dot, and then behind her, somewhere past the goat enclosure, came a soft oinking. Not loud, more ... questioning. Bella saw her before she saw Bella. It is strange to describe a pig's gaze as deliberate, stranger still to describe it as kind. But Bella's expression seemed to carry it, a sense of having chosen. She made a low, conversational noise, half grunt, half coo, and began trekking through the grass toward Laura, with the awkward confidence of a creature who has never once questioned her welcome. Laura blinked, took a step back, then forward. She didn't know why, and then, as if guided, she sat. Bella reached her, and without ceremony, hoisted herself onto the bench. Laura made a noise that would later translate to protest. but in the moment just sounded like breath-catching. Bella pressed into her side, warm and weighty, with the self-possession of someone who belonged. She exhaled happily and nudged Laura's side, not in demand, not even curious, just ... acknowledgement. That 42-minute lap sit became the stuff of law. Among volunteers, Bella ignored every treat but stayed still when Laura idly brushed her fur with a nervous, half-hesitant hand. When Laura teared up unexpectedly sometime after minute 13, Bella pressed closer but made no sound. Only her tail moved, soft, slow, looped like a comma. Back at the adoption center, the clerk recited facts about pigs. They're as smart as dogs, smarter even. They need routine. You'll want a sweater for winter, maybe two. Laura nodded absently, the part that stuck. Bella had been pushed out by her mother, rejected early. A little runt nobody expected to last. Laura touched the adoption form lightly. "I know what that does to a thing," she said. She didn't elaborate. And Bella, nudging her knee, didn't ask for more. Her neighbors were confused. A pig, really? At first, they joked. A few snorted at her driveway. Someone made oinking sounds one morning while jogging by. But Bella never barked. She never chased squirrels. She didn't dig holes or overturn trash bins. She simply walked by Laura's side, wearing a pink harness with quiet dignity, pausing every so often to greet a passing child like they were a dignitary worth knowing. Week by week, the laughter faded, replaced by waves, questions, even smiles. Back inside Laura's house, routines formed like sediment. Bella woke just before sunrise. She liked bird sounds and porridge, hates carrots, and staged silly standoffs with doorstops. Every evening, she'd climb up beside Laura on the couch and settle, interest rising like a slow metronome, eyes half-lidded but watchful. Laura would stroke her ears absent-mindedly, as if reacquainting her fingers with tenderness. They talked, sometimes. One spoke aloud. The other listened entirely with presence. "I don't know what I'm doing," Laura confessed once. "But I know I'm here." Bella, eyes closed, uncrossed her hooves and sighed. It sounded like agreement. Laura had never trained a dog, let alone a pig. But something about Bella made impossibility feel more like invitation, like a door cracked open rather than slammed shut. The piglet was bright, alarmingly so, and eager in a way that felt less like obedience and more like shared purpose. It started casually. Laura read articles, watched videos late into the night, while Bella snored beside her on the couch in a tiny set of blue pajamas. She scribbled notes on notepads left over from her nursing days, commands, reward timing, posture language. Most of it seemed ridiculous, but then again, so did the sight of a pig calmly riding in the front seat of a Subaru. They began in the backyard. Bella was food motivated, deeply so. Laura discovered Cheerios were the coin of the realm. She bought them in bulk and stowed snack bags around the house like a squirrel preparing for winter. "Sit," she would say, and Bella would lower herself, slowly, unsure if this was a command or just a new form of yoga. "Stay," and Bella would flutter her lashes, fake boredom, and then inch closer. One hoof at a time until she got the treat anyway. But then came the breakthrough. 3 weeks in, Laura added a phrase almost by accident. She had read, once, that pigs could detect emotional shifts in humans better than most domestic animals. So she asked gently, almost as a joke, "Who needs you today?" Bella cocked her head. Laura repeated it, slower, "Who needs you?" and something in Bella seemed to still. That day, as they practiced at the local park, Bella ignored her usual distractions, dogs barking, squirrels darting, and instead ambled toward a man sitting on the far bench. He looked defeated, slouched forward, dentures clutched loosely in a shaky hand. Bella approached quietly, nudged his elbow, and sat beside him. The man cried. Training took on a new tone after that. They still worked on the basic sit, roll over, come. Bella even learned to open soft latch doors with her snout and ring a small bell tied to the back fence. But always they returned to that cue. Who needs you? Sometimes Bella would sniff the air like she could taste sadness on the wind. Other times she'd freeze, blink slowly, then move with sudden conviction toward someone standing apart, pretending to be fine. Certification required hours of logged visits, obedience, and temperament. Testing more rigorous than Laura expected. Most facilities assumed therapy animals would be dogs. A pig raised eyebrows. But Bella saw it all as extension of the same curiosity that made her poke every shoe left at the back door. On the day of the exam, the proctor, a brisk woman in orthopedic flats, watched Bella tug gently at her harness, sensing another animal nearby. There was a loud clatter outside, a train horn, a bit too close, and Bella flinched. Just briefly, ears pinwheeling. Strike one, the evaluator muttered. They moved through the obstacle course. Bella aced tethering, content to be looped beside a chair quietly for the full 5-minute test. She allowed ear touches, tail examines, and even endured a child's sticky hand without complaint. But there was tension in the air, a question hovering, unspoken. Halfway through, a new arrival shifted the mood, a teenager with their hoodie pulled low, escorted in with gentle uncertainty. The teen was here for evaluation later, but now sat, hunched in the waiting area, knees drawn up. Bella stopped. She hadn't been given a directive, no verbal cue. But her body went still, nose lifting, not in alarm but awareness. Laura, frozen behind the examiner, didn't speak. Bella turned and trotted silently over. She plopped down beside the teen, not touching, just near. After a beat, she leaned in and dropped her head atop the teen's sneakered foot. There was a long, long pause. The teen whispered, "She's heavy, ... but it's okay." The evaluator put down her clipboard. "That," she said softly, "is what we call presence." Laura wept all the way home. Bella, as usual, fell asleep in the passenger seat, drooling slightly into her blanket. That night, Laura tacked Bella's official therapy animal certificate to the kitchen bulletin board next to fruit-shaped magnets and expired coupons. She didn't frame it. Bella wouldn't have cared, but she whispered thank you to it anyway. And then, more softly, "Who needs you, Bella?" A tail wag, and then sleep. Bella had a very particular way of walking into a room, like she'd been expected. Not in the way a dog bounds in, or a cat inspects first. She simply entered steady, curious, confident in her purpose. Soft hooves made barely a sound, but she left impressions anyway. Her first official visit was to Silver Shoals Memory Care Facility, a building with worn carpets and wide windows, filled with faces caught somewhere between decades. Bella wore a pale blue sunflower bow clipped gently behind her ear and trotted alongside Laura through the sliding door like a practiced diplomat. Inside, some smiled, some stared, a few muttered to themselves in time signatures no longer in fashion. Mrs. Lillian Carmichael, 89 years old and known for biting nurses during blood draws, sat by herself near a faded puzzle table when the staff introduced Bella. Lillian scowled. "Don't need no bacon in here," she snapped. But Bella didn't flinch. She wondered close, slow patient is if she'd secured some universal permission Laura couldn't see. Then she gently pressed her side against Lillian's shin and leaned her snout on the lowest rung of the woman's walker. Lillian blinked. Her mouth trembled and her eyes drifted not away, but back. "I grew up with pigs," she whispered suddenly. "In Iowa, we had one named Daisy. Used to hum when she slept." "Like this one?" asked a nurse nearby. Lillian didn't respond right away. Then in steady, but deliberate, she reached down and stroked Bella's head. Beside Laura, someone gasped. It had been 7 weeks since Lillian had made physical contact with a person, or anything else. She smiled that day, twice. Bella had been present. A few weeks later, they visited Park Ridge Elementary, a squat red building with murals of stars and open books painted down its hallway. Room 3B was holding reading hour, a time which usually caused more distress than calm for certain students. Mrs. Everett, a teacher with a scarf for every weather, guided Laura and Bella past rows of desks. The children's eyes went wide when they saw her pig, in a little green vest. "You can pet her gently," Laura said, keeping her voice low. Bella took her place on a cushion in the classroom's corner, blinking slowly as a boy with dyslexia read haltingly from a second-grade storybook about space travel. Usually, his stammer would build to tears, but as he struggled with another consonant-consonant blend, Bella let out one small, comforting honk, not loud, almost conversational. The boy paused, laughed, then continued. After that, she became part of the school's wellness week. Not every day, just when needed. Bella never made noise during math, for some strange reason. But when reading grew hard, or writing became a battlefield between brain and wrist, Bella would stand and walk unasked toward the student whose scribbles had begun to falter. They called her the reading pig. No one questioned the wisdom in that. Then came Emily, a small girl, 7 years old. Brown pigtails and a wardrobe of pastel dresses, all too tidy for comfort. She'd been brought to St. Isidora's Children's Recovery Center after living through something no child should. She'd not spoken in 214 days. Caseworkers were patient. Therapists tried art, nature walks, even music therapy. Nothing until Bella. The visit wasn't scheduled. Laura and Bella had just finished a morning session downstairs when Emily wandered in, drawn by the possibility of seeing something soft. She sat in the doorway, knees tucked to chest. Bella noticed her immediately. Didn't approach. Just glanced at her, then performed her biggest blushing, yawn squealing halfway through. A noise entirely inelegant and unmistakably silly. Emily coughed. They thought it was a cough, but it wasn't. She laughed. It started small, sharp, and unsure, then grew round with surprise. Her shoulders quivered. She slapped her hand over her mouth like it wasn't allowed. Then she whispered, "Barely, funny pig," and the room stood still. After that, Emily followed Bella's visits religiously. She never talked to the adults, but she whispered to Bella, called her piggy pie, braided ribbons into her leash, sat next to her at story time and snuck her Cheerios from her lunch tray. Someday, Laura thought, Emily would tell people how she found her way back from silence. For now, it was enough that she had a place to speak, even if her voice was only for one listener at a time. Bella never told as fall approached. So did raincoats and costume plans. Bella had a wardrobe. Not an expansive one, but just enough to suggest she enjoyed seasons. She had a sunflower vest for springtime, an orange witch hat for Halloween, a pink slicker with tiny silver hearts for wet days. All her outfits remained functionally absurd and completely cherished. At the Children's Wing Halloween parade, she was dressed as a bumblebee. Wings flapped as she trotted. Kids clapped. Nurses took selfies. One child put a sticker on her snout. She wore it proudly all day. Her Instagram following just for friends and a few veterinarians. Someone posted a video of Bella tugging a mood ring from a stressed middle schooler's pocket and wagging her tail in approval, and it went viral. Suddenly, she received packages, sweaters, knitted by retirees in Michigan, letters written in crayon. "Dear Bella, thank you for being soft." One girl sent a drawing of Bella with an actual human halo. The envelope read simply, "To the pig who helped my brother smile again." Laura began printing the messages and pinning them on a corkboard near the front door. Some days, she'd read them aloud to Bella while boiling oats. "You calmed my son even when 3 adults couldn't. My wife passed, but she smiled when Bella came near. My autistic daughter said her first sentence to Bella. She asked, 'Is Piggy hungry?' Bella, of course, was always hungry. Every evening ended the same, with Laura on the couch, Bella tucked into her side, snoring slightly, but enough. 'You're a miracle,' Laura sometimes murmured. Bella never responded outright, but once she snorted in her sleep and kicked out one back hoof, as if sprinting towards something brave and unfinished. On a crisp Thursday morning, weeks before Bella would fall ill, Laura took her to the downtown children's hospital for a routine visit. Bella wore her blue hoodie with a yellow felt star sewn on the back. They paused at every nurse's station. Bella greeted each person as if remembering exactly what they'd said on her last visitor nod. A press of the shoulder. She visited a toddler who'd had spinal surgery, letting him tap her ears in rhythm. She settled beneath the fore-tree of a teenage girl getting her 3rd round of chemo and watched her color a book of sea creatures. They ended at the garden, where a group of children sat on beanbags, listening to a volunteer read from Shel Silverstein. Bella curled against Laura's leg. A boy leaned onto Bella like she was furniture, trusting and weighty, and Bella let him. As the poem ended, the children clapped Bella oinked, and laughter rose, wide and tangy, as warm and inexplicable as grace itself. It began on a Friday morning, the kind with a sky that can't quite commit, half cloud, half sun, all indecision. Laura was stirring oatmeal while Bella dozed near the radiator, her snout twitching with sleep and dreams. Nothing felt off, not yet. Then Bella didn't come for breakfast. She stood, but slowly. Her usual routine: circle the rug, nudge the cupboard, snort once in expectation, was absent. Her eyes seemed dulled, like the shine had slunk away during the night. Laura called her. Bella blinked, took one step, then another, and collapsed. The vet clinic knew her by name. "Miss Bella," they said, still smiling as they wheeled her in. Laura followed, brittle and unblinking. They tried not to look spooked, but it bled through tight mouths. Glances exchanged just outside the doorway. Words like torsion and acute distress traveled in whispers. Laura stood by the sink and gripped the counter while they inserted the 4. Bella didn't resist her, tired for even a hum. Laura reached out and touched the space between her ears, murmuring something useless, a comfort, a plea. Maybe both. She stayed hours. Once the receptionist offered tea. It went cold beside her. The diagnosis: gastric torsion. A swift, unforgiving twist of the stomach. Emergency surgery was the only chance. Bella was wheeled away beneath warm lights and blinking monitors. In the surgical waiting room, Laura sat on a cracked vinyl chair and remembered another waiting room years ago. 2 minutes past 3 a.m., a child on a gurney with a crushed rib cage. Her own hands coated in blood. People had said she was calm, professional, a pillar. But what they hadn't seen was how her body folded afterward on the hospital floor, next to the vending machine. Knees pulled up, wishing for just 5 fewer seconds of memory. That same ache crept in now. Not panic, just too much feeling in too small a space. The surgeon came out after 93 minutes. She made it through, he said, but barely. We'll watch for infection, but she's not out of the woods. Laura nodded. Her legs barely carried her to the recovery stall, where Bella lay beneath soft lighting, wrapped in towels. She looked small. Not just small for a pig small in the way the brave sometimes look when they've put everything they have into survival. Laura sat on the floor, knees popping, and put her hand beside Bella's snout. Not on it, beside, as if waiting to be. Invited, she whispered, I'm here. Bella didn't move. Recovery became its own kind of limbo. Bella refused food. She flinched when touched. Her loosely, a casual metronome lay still. The vet staff called it normal. Laura called it something else. She's retreating, she told them. She's pulling inside. They let her bring Bella home after 5 days. She arranged heat pads, soft lighting, took vacation time she wasn't sure she still had. At night, she slept on the floor next to her, a nest of blankets and exhaustion. Neither of them comfortable. Once she awoke to find Bella staring at the wall, eyes wide, unmoving, not frightened, not present either. Somewhere in between, hope came. From the smallest hands. Emily arrived on a Tuesday, brought by her foster mother. She hadn't visited in weeks, not since her own placement shifted. She'd outgrown bows. Her smile was subtler now. She didn't ask to enter. She just walked in, tugging a faded drawing from her pocket. It showed Bella in a glittery cape. Lucy, the ladybug, beside her, stars in the margins. The kind of picture only a child makes with full belief. Emily kneeled by the bed. Hey, Piggy Pie, she whispered. Bella didn't budge. Emily reached out, one tiny hand resting gently on the hoof. You helped me, she said solemnly, the way old souls speak. Now it's my turn. There was no miracle, no sudden standing, but something loosened. Bella blinked. Once, then again. The next day, Bella sniffed the oats. She didn't eat, but she sniffed. By Thursday, she chewed once and stopped. Friday, she finished 3 teaspoons. Sunday, she nudged Laura's knee with enough force that Laura startled and then sobbed. Healing came the way all healing does, not in fireworks, but in tiny footsteps rediscovered. A lick of banana yogurt, a faint tail twitch at the sound of a bell, rain tapping on the window while Laura read aloud from a dog-eared novel about elephants. Little normal things blooming again. A garden of obabilities. A week later, Bella stood beneath the maple tree in the front yard. The autumn leaves hadn't fallen yet, but the wind had grown honest sharp enough to carry memory. She wore her fleece vest. Laura watched from the porch, holding the mug Bella had once tried to steal. For a few minutes, the pig simply stood, not trotting, not sniffing, just ... being. Then she turned, waddled slowly but surely toward the steps, and climbed step by step until she reached Laura's side. They sat there together as the sky softened into amber. "We're still here," Laura said. Bella exhaled, and even that felt like a prayer. Bella didn't move as fast as she used to. Her trot had become a thoughtful amble, and she took more breaks along hallways, but when she entered a room, people still stopped mid-sentence, mid-thought. She still had that gravity, the kind that bends sorrow just enough to make space for laughter. She wore a daisy crown now, soft, white and cheerful, perched above one ear and secured with the smallest elastic. Laura had made it from fabric, scraps and goodwill. It flopped whenever Bella tilted her head, which made her look either deeply curious or mildly disapproving. Both expressions she wore often. Her first return was to the children's oncology wing. A nurse gasped when she saw the pig waddle in, whispered, "She's back," like saying it too loud might undo the moment. Bella blinked once, pressed her snout to the floor for balance, and moved toward a cluster of beanbags where two kids sat wrapped in blankets, too tired for anything but waiting. She stopped beside the smaller boy. He didn't react at first, but then Bella leaned gently, her whole side brushing. His, like a promise hand, let out a sound barely louder than a breath. "His mother?" whispered. He smiled. Laura started writing not long after Bella's recovery. Nothing elaborate, just bedtime stories hidden inside her laptop and notes scribbled on napkins, written with the same care she once reserved for medication dosages and emergency charts. Bella's big day began as a joke, something for the kids to laugh at. But as the pages added up, so did the layers. A pig uncertain of her purpose, who tries to be a dog, a cat, even an owl, lonely, to realize she's most helpful by being exactly what she is. Laura paired each passage with real photos. Bella in a beekeeper's costume, Bella helping a child with flashcards, Bella beneath fairy lights at a storytime circle. A small publisher took it on, and then it wasn't small anymore. Letters followed, from veterans and teachers, from single parents and teenagers who never felt like they fit anywhere, handwritten notes, typed messages, crayon drawings stuffed inside envelopes without return addresses. "Thank your pig," one man wrote, scrawling from the edges of grief. "Because of Bella, I let someone hug me for the first time in years." Another, "My sister passed, but she watched every Bella video twice before chemo days. She said the pig understood." From a boy in Michigan, "Bella is like a soft shield, like a secret superpower. Don't ever let her get sad." Laura read them aloud on quiet evenings. After the dishes were done, after Bella had finished her oats and wedged herself into the couch's crook, where she leaked comforting heat and occasional snores. Bella never responded, but she always listened. They went slower, now 2 visits each week, a cap on hours. No more stairs, but Bella never rushed anyway. She took corners cautiously, acknowledging each room like it deserved a bow. When Laura carried her blanket and favorite toy, an old stuffed lamb missing an eye, Bella would sleep beside her as preparations were made. First came the hospital garden, read aloud, then the visit with a boy who only spoke in baseball metaphors, then a center for elderly veterans, where one man saluted her and wept quietly into his sleeve. Bella let him, one warm spring day. They returned to St. Isidora's. The courtyard had changed, new benches, a mural painted by the children who'd stayed long enough to recover. A familiar giggle echoed along the side path. Emily, taller now, her hair longer, knotted around a bandana decorated in stars and lavender scribbles. She wore jeans, held a book pressed to her chest. When she saw Bella, she dropped everything and ran. Piggy pie. Bella acknowledged her presence with one proud, considerate oink. Emily leaned down, placed both hands on either side of her snout, and whispered into Bella's ear. "She remembers," Laura said softly. Someone beside her replied, "They both do." That summer, Bella appeared at more events than ever low impact, high love. She curled beside speakers at story festivals, paraded through local senior centers, even helped comfort a child afraid of flying at the airport therapy program. She became known for her flower crowns, her Instagram quotes which Laura never quite admitted she wrote, and the delicate ritual she had for greeting new friends. A nose bump, then a sigh, then a blink, as if saving words for only the most important things. Not all therapists need notepads. One fan wrote. Someone else called her a professor of compassion. Bella simply showed up, as she always did. The final visit of the year was held outside a large lawn behind the pediatric recovery unit, dotted with picnic blankets and inflatable cushions. Children buzzed with late afternoon sugar. Volunteers handed out lemonade, and a soft hum of harp music threaded through the air. Laura sat cross-legged, the children's book resting on her knees. Bella lay next to her, flower crown crooked, bow askew. She blinked slowly. A toddler reached out and stroked her back. Another climbed into Laura's lap to hear the story better. Once, there was a pig, Laura read, voice steady, who thought maybe she could help people. She wasn't sure how, but she showed up anyway. And slowly, everyone realized, that was the hardest part. Hands stilled. Breezes passed gently. No one spoke. Bella shifted her weight. Nudged closer. The toddler rested his head against her side. She let him when the story ended. There was a husher, contented silence that didn't need filling. Bella blinked, as she always did, with quiet patience, then released a soft oink, round and warm. The echo of breath pressed through devotion. Somewhere nearby, a nurse smiled with just her eyes. Some kids clapped. Some didn't need to. And the world, for one tremulous moment, simply held. Still, not with grief. Not with fear, just peace. Back at home that night, Laura placed the storybook on the shelf. It sat beside framed photos of children, crayon portraits of pigs with halos and superhero capes, belathamed buttons and letters tied with yarn or rubber, bands, a shrine, almost unintentional, sacred. She looked over at the couch. Bella had already climbed up, as she always did, the same couch, same side, same sigh as she curled into Laura's hip. Her breathing was deeper now, slower, but it was there, and that was enough. Laura reached out, smoothed one ear. Some imprints, she whispered, aren't made in mud. They're left on hearts. Bella didn't stir, but her tail gave one small flick as though agreeing.